And away we go. It's just me at the moment, as always. Not sure if Risk or Eric are going to join. Again, not too sure. Either way, the show must go on, no matter what happens. So, let's see what's in the news. Ariana Grande tests positive for COVID after Wicked for Good press tour. Really? We're still talking about COVID in 2025? Okay, let's see where this is going. Ariana Grande tested positive for COVID during the global press tour for the movie Wicked for Good. Grande will miss some press events, including an appearance on The Kelly Clarkson Show, due to a COVID-19 diagnosis. The film, Wicked for Good, is expected to break box office records for movies based on Broadway musicals with a global opening in excess of $200 million. Again, how can someone catch COVID in 2025? How are we still talking about this? I thought we're past that, man. Or are they just going around just, okay, here you go, here's your virus. There you go, and here's your virus. And here's your virus. It's like giving handouts to people that just don't need it, but there's too much of it, so someone has to have it. Either way, hopefully Ariana Grande does recover somehow. I'm certain she will recover. If we've learned anything from the COVID lockdowns, the amount of time it took to get the vaccines ready is nothing short of amazing. And a miracle, too. You don't see that kind of progress or initiative for a vaccine of any virus, ever. Most would take years to develop. COVID vaccines, that took months. So, one hand, it sounds impressive. The other hand, conspiracy theorists will say, why does it took that little time to come up with something like that? What's the hold up? I'm just saying, make up your thoughts as you will. So yeah, hopefully Ariana Grande recovers and she can go back to doing her press tour as she should, and so on. Eurovision tightens rules after Israel voting controversy. On Friday, the European Broadcasting Union (EBU) announced rule changes revising voting and promotion rules to strengthen trust, transparency, and audience engagement, approved by the Eurovision Organisers Reference Group. Israel's entry toppled the public vote in May, but placed second overall after jury scores. Last year, reports said an Israeli government agency paid for adverts and urged votes, promoting boycotts, threats from Avatros and others. Organisers will restore professional juries to the semi-finals, increasing jury panels from 5 to 7 and cutting public votes per payment method to 10 from 20, while updating the code of conduct to ban third-party campaigns and add technical safeguards. EBU members will decide at the General Assembly on December 4th to December 5th whether the measures are sufficient, then confirm participants for Vienna and publish the full list before Christmas. Martin Green said the steps aim to protect neutrality as Vienna hosts the 70th Eurovision with the grand final on May 16, 2026, and the EBU will monitor the 2026 contest. Alright, so firstly, for the years that Eurovision has existed, anyone saying, oh, it's not political, yes, it is. And no matter how hard the organisers, the broadcasters hosting, try to say that it's not political, there will be some aspects that are inevitable to be somewhat political in any way, especially with the voting, whether it be the juries or the public. That there's no escaping that. Secondly, the changes to the voting, like instead of having 20 votes for each payment method, you now are given 10 public votes. all these 10 quantities of votes that you can distribute to your favorite entries. I mean, it's not going to fix everything, however, it is a start. I'll give them that. Thirdly, the transparency of the votes. This was brought up by RTV Slo, which is the Slovenian broadcaster. They're the ones that actually brought this complaint up with the EBU. And I think if the Slovenian broadcaster didn't bring this up, most likely these changes would not be in place. So, you know what? A win for Slovenia. A win for the Slovenian broadcaster. That's brilliant. I'm glad someone actually spoke out on something. I'll massive credits to them for that. And there was two other things I was going to say regarding this story. The semi-finals, bringing back the juries. Now, I heard a while back about why the juries were even removed from the semi-finals to begin with. I think this goes back to 2022 when Eurovision was hosted in Torino, Italia. And last time I recall, the reason why the semi-finals were removed, no, the reason why the juries were removed from the semi-finals was because there was rumors or speculations that some particular countries' broadcasters were in cahoots with each other to give each other points in hopes they would advance to the final. Now, this is completely different to how each country's juries votes for their entries based on mutual similarities and interests, or the fact they just like the people from that country. No, these countries that were in cahoots with each other to get themselves into the final, they don't vote for each other's entries all that often. So for these set of countries, juries, to give each other entries points to then advance to the final, despite the fact the records of the countries within each other voting in previous editions did not add up whatsoever. That made the EBU very, very suspicious. And you know what? I don't blame the EBU on that. Now, voting for entries similar to musical culture or the fact there is historical ties with these people is one thing. However, voting for particular entries in hopes to advance is a completely different ballgame, and that is something that really it just seems unfair. It's not just unfair. It's more than just unfair. It's also the fact that yeah, actually, that's about it. That's all I can think of. Imagine if these particular set of countries that were in cahoots with each other in 2022, who weren't agreed to give them each other the highest amount of points possible, what entries from the 2022 edition of Eurovision, who which countries could have advanced if that was not the case? Especially even in the following editions going forward, if the juries still had a bit of a role in the voting for the semi-finals, which countries, which of their entries could have actually gone to the final, and could have that made a difference on which nation actually won Eurovision? That's a massive butterfly effect moment for you. And yeah, that was one more I was going to say regarding Eurovision. Israel. Everyone knows about Israel. They're more than just a hot topic nowadays. They have also won a couple of Eurovision editions in the past, and also the fact that they have even taken part in Eurovision is also the reason why, if anyone asks the question, why doesn't other countries like North Africa or Middle East don't take part in Eurovision? Because the thing is, even though these countries, even though most Arab nations, so from North Africa to Middle East, even though they're not in Europe, they are within the scope in terms of actually being able to participate in Eurovision. Like 1980s, Morocco took part in one year, but that was the year that Israel said that they weren't going to take part in 1980 because it was kind of it was a public holiday. Not sure what the name is, but I know it was a public holiday taking place the same day or same night as Eurovision in 1980. Hence why Israel was not taking part in Eurovision in 1980. And what took its place was Morocco. Morocco only took part once in 1980, and after that, we haven't heard from Morocco ever since. And then 1981, Israel came back and continued taking part in the years going forward. So that just shows that even though Morocco is not part of Europe, they were allowed to take part in Eurovision, despite the fact they're not in Europe, whilst other countries like Australia require an invitation from the EBU to be allowed to take part in Eurovision. Participation and eligibility is quite confusing. But of course, again, Israel is more than just a hot topic nowadays. It's also the fact that Israel being in Eurovision is the reason why the countries they want to take part and they were eligible to take part without needing an invitation don't want to take part in Eurovision because Israel's there. And most, at least countries with a majority Arab slash Muslim population. I think a lot of people know the history there. You can look this up yourself, and whatever information you get, it speaks for itself. So yeah, whatever comes out of the decision that the EBU is taking regarding Israel taking part in this year's Eurovision, well, you'll start to see quite the noticeable difference. If Israel stays, there's going to be 6 countries who will not submit an entry to take part in Eurovision. In fact, they will withdraw their participation if Israel is to compete, which then opens the door for 2 countries to take part, which, just like Australia, needs an invitation from the EBU to be allowed to take part. And those countries are Kazakhstan and Canada. I never thought we'd get to that moment, but if all is all and well and the EBU does approve of Kazakhstan and Canada taking part in Eurovision, we could see new debutants in Eurovision for the decade of the 2020s. I'm actually all for that. But nothing is guaranteed yet with Canada or Kazakhstan. If in the event that 6 countries were to withdraw their participation, if Israel is allowed to continue competing. Yet on the other hand, if Israel was being given a vote to say Israel is not allowed to compete in this year's Eurovision, Germany allegedly said that they too will not take part in Eurovision if Israel is not going to be in it. Which, you know what, I'm not surprised, especially what happened in World War II with the Austrian painter slash mustache man. You know, that guy. Can't argue with that. So yeah, regardless of which way it goes for this year's Eurovision, it's quite a pickle. Everyone's in hot water at the moment about how to go ahead with this year's Eurovision, especially with Israel being in the picture. What a time to be alive, am I right? Crikey. Kalshi announced it raised $1 billion at an $11 billion valuation, led by Sequoia Capital and Capital G, according to TechCrunch. The new funding follows a surge in prediction market attention after correctly forecasting the New York City mayoral election earlier this month, and less than 2 months after a $300 million raise at a $5 billion valuation. Operating as a CFTC regulated exchange and positioning itself as a US compliant alternative, Kalshi ran live New York subway ads and acquired a derivatives exchange and clearing house. The new valuation nudges Kalshi closer to rival Polymarket's $12 billion to $15 billion target and bolsters its standing among institutional and retail traders. Despite securing US rights after suing the CFTC last year, Kalshi faces legal disputes with state regulators who claim its activities are illegal gambling, while rivals like Polymarket have been barred since 2022. It's kind of murky with prediction markets. On one hand, it's a form of gambling which not many people should do, especially if they don't know the amount of losses they're likely to endure if they're not careful with what they are gambling with. On the other hand, prediction markets, as it stands now, has provided an alternative perspective on how we view today's world. Again, I'm not encouraging gambling whatsoever. All I'm saying is prediction markets as it stands today has given a unique perspective to how we see the world. And also, this is not to say it's an alternative to mainstream media. Is an interesting perspective how people put money on the line to say a particular outcome of an event is going to happen in the next week, next month, the following year or two, and so on. And then once the outcome does come about, whoever was spot on with our prediction, they're going to get a massive payout. So it's a win for the person making the bet and a win for the platform that's providing these predictions in the market. I wouldn't blame Eric if he was here about the concerns about gambling. He would be spot on with that. However, even if prediction markets weren't in the limelight now, we will eventually hear stories like this come about in the next few years if prediction markets today didn't come into existence. Zelensky says Ukraine faces choice of losing its dignity or risking the loss of a key partner with US peace plan. On Friday, Zelensky coordinated with Macron, Starmer, and Merz, discussing the US plan and saying he expects to speak with Trump soon. Media reports show the 28-point plan endorses several of Russia's demands and asks Kiev to concede territory, while Reuters said the Trump administration threatened to cut intelligence and weapons supplies to pressure Kiev. Rescuers reported civilian casualties earlier this week as a missile attack on Ternopil killed at least 31 and wounded 94. A glide bomb hit Zaporizhia, killing 5, and the Kremlin said around 5,000 Ukrainian troops were trapped on the river Oskil. European allies said they were not consulted and urged safeguarding vital European and Ukrainian interests, assuring Zelensky of unwavering support while stressing how the war ends matters. Zelensky insisted any deal must deliver a dignified peace and warned ceding territory would threaten Ukraine's survival, while Dmitry Peskov urged talks citing Russian battlefield gains on Friday. I've said this many times before. I will say it again. I am sick and tired of the war going on in Ukraine. I'm sick and tired of the lives that are lost from both the Ukrainian and the Russian side of this war. And whilst there is something happening and there's somewhat progress in ensuring there is peace between the two countries, I am not liking how this war is still going on and more lives are still being lost. Which, of course, I will say, rest in peace to all of the Ukrainian and Russian lives that have been lost so far since this war has started. I send my deepest condolences to the friends and family of those Russian and Ukrainian lives. And whilst I know people who will have opinions siding with one or the other, I do not blame anyone for those opinions. I just had enough with this war. I want to see progress. I want to see something happen for the better. But I can't be too naive about this. Nothing is going to go exactly to plan. What is yet to come. But so long there is progress, that will potentially see both sides living at peace. That's all I ask for, and that is all that matters. Lilly becomes first drug maker to join trillion-dollar club on weight loss demand boom. On Friday, Eli Lilly hit $1 trillion in market value, briefly touching the milestone in morning trade before retreating, becoming the first drug maker to join the club. Growing demand for obesity drugs prompted Eli Lilly's shift after tirzepatide's approval helped it pivot from diabetes to obesity with Zepbound and Mounjaro turning treatments into a lucrative segment. In the latest quarter, Lilly reported more than $10.09 billion from its obesity and diabetes portfolio, over half of $17.6 billion total revenue, and its stock rally has exceeded 35% last year. Wall Street projects the weight loss market at $150 billion by 2030, and with Lilly and Novo controlling most sales, while Lilly's White House pricing deal and production investments aim to support growth amid margin pressures. Investors are now focused on Lilly's oral obesity drug, orforglipron, expected early next year, while Citi analysts say that GLP-1 class's success could boost its market entry against Novo Nordisk. $150 billion by 2030 for the weight loss market. I'm not surprised, especially since I'm seeing a lot of celebrities who have seen an incredible weight loss journey. That's not to take away what the celebrities looked like before. However, seeing the difference with these celebrities that use Ozempic, wow, they really do work. It really does. And it doesn't stop at celebrities. There are a few people I know from school, college, drama school / university. I know a few people that are thick skinned or have a wide physique, you would say. I saw a difference in their physique as well. Now, I'm not saying it's like Ozempic being the reason, but I haven't seen these people in a while, and seeing the difference in their appearance. Now, again, it doesn't make them any different, nor should they be treated differently for their appearance. However, the difference in their appearance since I last saw them is quite starking. It's very noticeable. And you know what? Good for them. Nice to see that taking efforts to make their lives better, however they want to make their lives better. And I'd say the same for everyone else. If something doesn't feel right and you want to make a difference, go for it. I absolutely suggest you go for it. And if you're happy with how you're living your life, good for you. So yeah. So weight loss market at $150 billion market valuation. Not surprised. I can see the difference with a lot of people who used to be thick-skinned or wide physiqued, and seeing a noticeable difference in their appearance. Again, not that it makes their lives any better, but something is working for them. Not just Ozempic, but changes in lifestyle, their diet, or maybe just going out every now and then. Those are the possibilities. So yeah, that's that. A new Miss Universe is crowned weeks after she left a passion event in protest. On Friday, Miss Mexico Fatima Bosch was crowned Miss Universe in Nonthaburi, north of Bangkok, Thailand. A November 4th livestream on Miss Universe Thailand's Facebook page showed passionate executive Nawat Itsara Grisil scolding Fatima Bosch for allegedly refusing to promote the host country, and Bosch denied the claim, saying shortly after, "Your director is not respectful." The confrontation escalated when the executive insulted Fatima Bosch's intelligence, prompting many contestants to walk out in solidarity. Bosch was later seen on stretcher/hospital video being rushed to hospital. Bosch succeeded Denmark's Victoria Tvilig, might have butchered it, who passed along her crown at the ceremony, with Miss Thailand Pravinar Singh as first runner-up and others filling the top five. The Miss Universe organization affirmed its mission to promote collaboration, respect, and safety for delegates. The Miss Universe organization found itself mired in controversy ahead of the final, including the November 4th viral confrontation and Miss Jamaica, Gabrielle Henry, tumbling off the stage Thursday. Yeah, I think that should be a lesson for everyone. Do not judge anyone based on their appearance, intelligence, or whatever they say or do. But of course, in the case of insulting anyone, you just don't. I think with those opinions, you're better off keeping them to yourself, in my opinion. Oh, in regards to the contestants, it's nice to see that women are standing side by side together against such comments. It's very nice to see that. So yeah, whoever the director is, yeah, he's in hot water. I can't stress that enough. I think at that point you should resign for such comments. Not just the comment alone, but also the fact that these contestants are standing in solidarity against what the director made comments. Having such a solidarity protest against someone's comments, the person making that comment at least step down from their role and someone else takes over. Because that's embarrassing. Not just to have not just to have an opinion or make a comment on someone, but to have groups of women, men, or other people going against the person making that comment, saying we're not going to put up with this. You shouldn't say stuff like that. I think that's the nail in the that is a nail on the coffin there. It's embarrassing. Look, if you're gonna make comments, at least be clever about it. Don't just be mean and degrading to people. Also, try and be light-hearted with it. I'm not justifying such comments. However, if you're gonna say anything, do not say them for the sake of degrading people or putting them down. It never works out. It never does. Maha idealism meets political reality as RFK Jr. attempts to wrangle a growing movement. This year, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. ordered a transformation that led HHS to lay off about 10,000 employees and stop more than 4,400 NIH grants. Witness found. Winding down mRNA vaccine development led officials to promote reprioritizing research with biomedical advanced research and development authorities canceling almost $500 million in investment affecting 22 projects. While Kennedy said, "Our purpose is not to reduce any level of scientific research that's important." A November JAMA Internal Medicine Research letter found 383 NIH-supported clinical trials lost funding from February 28th to August 15th, affecting over 74,000 clinical trial participants and halting projects at UCSF and Emory University. Although courts ordered restorations, grant witness reported about 52% of NIH grants were reinstated as of November 19th, but 2,500 grants remain frozen or terminated. Kennedy said, "There's a number of studies that were cut that came to our attention, and that did not deserve to be cut, and we reinstated them." Internal criticism of MAHA has intensified with former officials and Gray Delaney saying MAHA is not MAHA anymore, warning Fisher's could threaten its alliance with President Donald Trump. When you talk about healthcare, it's serious. I can't stress that enough. Whilst we should always listen to healthcare advice from experts about what's in the air, what diseases people could get, and effects that we might go through if we were given prescriptions or medication for whatever it combats against particular illnesses, if that makes sense. Always question these effects. Always question what you are being given to tackle whatever illness or condition you would potentially have. I've said it once, maybe twice, I'll say it again. I don't think we're questioning healthcare experts enough, and clinicians as well. Whilst they'll likely know what they're doing, and it is their job to ensure the health of humans and other civilians in today's society. Something else you have to understand. There are groups of people working with healthcare. They most likely don't want you to be well and living well. Some would provide you with something that kind of gets you through, but then you had to take more of it to ensure it lessens the effect of it, and then you eventually go back to the pharmacy to get the prescription or particular medication to combat whatever illness you have. Again, as important as it is to listen to healthcare advice, people have to question the effects of whatever prescription they are being given. It's very important. There's no arguing with that. It is important that we stay healthy and we live life to the best of our ability. UK opens new AI-powered underwater drone facility. I thought for a second there it said powered underwear. I don't know why I was thinking that, silly me. On Wednesday, Helsing opened its first UK resilience factory in Plymouth, an 1,000-square-foot site, with John Healey, Secretary of State for Defence, leading the launch to produce SG Fathom autonomous underwater gliders. The government says the move was prompted by Russia's shadow fleet, capable of mapping and potentially sabotaging UK undersea cables, citing Yantar's laser incidents this month and its return in recent weeks. The SG-1 Fathom will integrate with LoRa Maritime AI's large acoustic model for real-time detection and classification, while gliders can operate for 3 months and be deployed in hundreds as swarms. Production has already begun and testing is underway at Turnchapel Wharf, Plymouth, and the British Underwater Test and Evaluation Centre, creating high-skilled jobs in the southwest and expanding supply chains. The move ties into government defence plans with at least 10% of Ministry of Defence equipment procurement aimed at novel technologies and spending rising to 2.6% of GDP by April 2027. Not bad, not bad. I'm just looking more into the story, like what the purpose of these underwater drone facilities are, or at least the underwater drones that will go underwater and do what? Again, that's what I want to know. What's the purpose? You don't just create drones and just send it willy-nilly in uncharted territory. There's got to be a purpose to something. Also, when I was reading the story, I thought my no, actually, last time I checked, as of this recording, my local MP is secretary or something. I thought it was the same department that's responsible for these underwater drones, but just checking, I think he's in something else. So yeah, I was just having a brain fart for a second, but I looked into it. It all makes sense now. So now, what could these drones be used for? Again, I have no idea. I don't blame anyone for not knowing either. Alright, so just scrolling on Twitter X, there is this X post by Stats for Lefties looking at voting intention amongst Jewish Brits. I wonder what Eric and Risk would think of this if they were here right now. You know, I'll send in the chat. If they're not here, I'll send in the chat. So, yeah, I'm looking at a post on Twitter X by Stats for Lefties looking at which which percentage of Jewish Brits which party would Jewish Brits vote for in the next general election? And going in order of lowest percentage to the highest percentage, we have other parties or independents at 4%, 9% of Jewish Brits say they will vote for Liberal Democrats, 11% say they would vote for Reform, 18% say they would vote for the Green Party, 28% say they will vote for the Tories, and then finally, at 30% of all Jewish Brits that took part in this survey, where the poll is posted, 30% of Jewish Brits say they will vote for Labour. And the source is Institute for Jewish Policy Research. Between 8th of June to 20th of July 2025. Like, the people can make that as they will. Just know that. And then, actually, in the previous polls before, Labour went down 14% since the last poll has been done amongst Jewish Brits' voting intention. The Tories went down 4% and up 9%. Reform went up 8%, and then the Liberal Democrats went up 1%. No change for anyone else, other parties, independents, and so on. So, whilst there is a, a swift change of opinions for the parties amongst British Jewish people, there's still a handful of those that still would either vote for the established parties. Again, I don't have a strong opinion about which people group votes for which party, but I know there will be people that will have a lot to say on that, and I'll leave it with them. Make of the information as you will. If you know, you know. If you don't, well, you can always talk about it with someone. It's not a taboo or anything. It's okay to talk about discussions like this, but just know that not everyone will be okay with such discussions. And again, that's also okay. We should talk about whatever we want to talk about. If people don't want to listen to this episode, they don't have to listen to this episode. They can listen to something else. And yeah, leave it at that. The United Arab Emirates plans to invest 50 billion US dollars in Canada, equivalent to 70 billion Canadian dollars, Carney's office said. As part of a bilateral investment framework agreement, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the $50 billion pledge following his trade-focused visit to Abu Dhabi, the first by a sitting Canadian Prime Minister since 1983. The United Arab Emirates funding targets energy sector, artificial intelligence, AI, logistics, mining, and data centers. Building on an initial October pact on AI and digital innovation. The investments would expand critical minerals processing capacity, create jobs, and boost supplies for energy technologies and advanced manufacturing, Prime Minister Markani said. Under directives from UAE, President Sheikh Mohammed Khalid bin Mohammed approved the $50 billion investment framework with no published notice from the UAE Foreign Ministry, and Carney raised Sudan civil war issues during his visit. You know what? I'll give Carney that. I'm glad he brought up Sudan in this. Again, I'm not to give any credit for anything. However, it's great to see that there are some leaders raising awareness about what's going on in Sudan, which is very awful. Whilst there are people talking about what's going on in Sudan, not much has been done about it. And even if Mark Carney has raised this issue with the UAE, are the UAE going to do anything about that? Are they going to continue with their operations with what they're operating? Or is it just stalemate and life goes on as if nothing ever happened? And it's not just Sudan. There's also Nigeria, Ethiopia. And also, I just thought about this today. I haven't heard much about what's going on in Myanmar. I heard there was a couple of months ago there was a military action within the country. Now, I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but one thing for sure, I sense there was a change in leadership in Myanmar. Where's that discussion? Where are these virtual signalers and advocates for endangered lives that talking about these kinds of problems in other countries around the world? We just don't know, man. We just don't know because people don't talk about it often. We're always stuck to particular news sources and hear nothing much about these places. Because it's not just that it's not much interest to the people reporting the story, and this is a stretch. There could be people, somehow, that believe by not speaking too frequently on these stories, only talking about them every now and then, so that if anyone asks, oh, you're not reporting on these stories, and then these news outlets then report on that story, they say, oh, what are you talking about? We're reporting on that story right now. But the thing is, whilst they report on the story once, do they actually give any more updates every now and then? Or do they just say it once for the sake of shutting down people that criticize or speaks out against news outlets that don't report on particular stories often? Wow, it's quite a mouthful for me, but it's still important to know that, honestly. Some days I do ask for world peace, but I know for certain that something like that is very, very unlikely. That's like a 1 million to 1 kind of odds that something like that would ever happen. But there is still hope. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. And that is it for the episode.